we will have plenty of time for questions. We encourage you to participate by asking questions through the Q&A option. To do that, type a question in the Q&A box at any time during the talk. Thank you to all who have already submitted questions through your registration. During the Q&A session, we will get to as many questions as we can. The webinar is being recorded and we will share it on the Alumni Association YouTube channel and on our website following the event. It is now my pleasure to introduce and welcome Jennifer Witten, Associate Dean and Director, the Olin Business School Weston Career Center. Jennifer joined the Olin Business School in July 2018 and has spent nearly 2 decades in higher education, serving undergraduate and graduate students in student affairs and career development. Before coming to WashU, she led career services teams and was an instructor at both Arizona State University and Indiana University. At Washington University, Jennifer and her team at the Weston Career Center are focused on preparing our students not only for their first job, but also for their careers well into the future, connecting with our strong alumni network and expanding the opportunities available to our students through proactive outreach and employer development. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Witten.
Thank you, Jenna. I'm really excited to be here today. As you mentioned, I'm the Associate Dean and Director of the Weston Career Center, and it's really my pleasure to introduce Kevin Kiley, who will be leading this webinar today. I want to share a little bit about Kevin and his background. He's a 2007 MBA graduate from the Olin Business School, and for more than 10 years, he's coached early and mid-career professionals, career switchers, high potential leaders, medical doctors, graduate and undergraduate students. His work has also spanned leadership communication, presentation, professional presence, team building, and conflict management. Not only has he coached professionals, he has got more than 5 years in leadership experience in corporate and talent development, more than 5 years experience in recruiting and evaluating candidates for our MBA program here at Olin. And also he's been an independent coach and a hiring manager for over 100 professional positions. He's reviewed thousands of candidate applications, and he is also an award-winning national award-winning communicator. He has 8 years of experience as a professional editor, which means he has extensive experience in reviewing resumes, LinkedIn profiles, cover letters, and other communications. So really excited to hear him talk today. He is a professional certified career coach to the International Coaching Federation, a certified career coach, and also an admissions consultant for graduate applications. We're very excited to have him here today to share the expertise of what he's not only done in his background as it's spanned working with multiple different types of people, but to hear how he's going to talk about how to manage your career in uncertain times. So Kevin, thank you for joining us, and I'll hand it over to you.
That is awesome. Thank you very much, Jen, and thank you very much, Jenna. I surely appreciate the introduction, and it's a wonderful thing for me to be here with you all, my fellow WashU alums and the WashU family here today. I tell people all the time that when it comes to me and my career, I feel like I grew up at Washington University, because not only did I do my MBA there, I also worked there for a little over 11 years. And so in an era of a pandemic, when we can't physically be someplace, to be here with you all today is as much as a homecoming as it can possibly be for somebody like me. So thank you all very much for joining me. I'm looking forward to this quite a bit. So we're here today to talk about career management in uncertain economic times. As I was putting together our presentation here today, I was thinking about the relationships that some people, many of us, have with employers, because it's a very interesting time, to say the least, right now. And it reminded, I was thinking that this meme on the screen that you see, how it comes to mind here for me, because it's like, maybe this says something about the relationship between employers and their employees, these days, especially because there's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now. And so I was going to talk about this, but then I thought, you know what, maybe I should actually cite whoever said this. I mean, it got me thinking, who said this or whatever. So I dug a little further into the internet, which is always an interesting endeavor. And the first thing I saw was this. And I thought, okay, well, that might be I don't know. My guess is that in MLK's time, they didn't have very many online job postings. So my guess is that, that he probably didn't say it. And then I found Morgan Freeman, and I feel like he's kind of a wise, older cat. This is the kind of thing that he might say. I mean, maybe that sounds like something he would say, but it just didn't seem to make a lot of sense. And then thought, well, maybe it was this guy, or maybe it was this guy, or maybe The Rock said it. I don't know. But the point is I couldn't find anything out there. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is simply the sentiment itself. if you take care of you, because if you passed away today, your job would be posted before your obituary. So this brings us to the first poll, and I have a few of these in our presentation here today. And Sam is going to help us with the polls. But the question, I want to know your opinion about this quote. Relative to your experience, is this spot on 100% right? Overall, probably true in most cases. Could be true every once in a while. Or whatever, Kevin, my employer would never do anything bad about everything of that to me. No way, this is completely off base or whatever. So if you could go ahead and register your thought on the poll. We'll give it just a few seconds here to see what people think, and then we'll look back to this in just a moment here. So if you could please enter your thought on the poll here. And then Sam, whenever we're got a critical mass, we'll go ahead and have a look, see what we got. All right, let's see what comes up here. So we have 56%, a little over half are saying overall it's probably mostly true in most cases, and the next one down is no doubt it's 100% right. And only 3% are thinking that no way, my employer would never do anything bad to me. No way. I appreciate that optimism quite a bit. I think we need a lot of optimism in our world here today. But it sounds like a good 86%. I think it's at least true in most cases, or it's 100% right, spot on. So thank you for that participation. Sam, thank you very much for loading up that poll. I think that when we look out there today, when we were talking about, managing your career in uncertain economic times, we're definitely seeing more and more of this right here, where it's saying companies are coming out with statements and they're saying, unfortunately, we're forced to make hard decisions. That's corporate speak for we're probably going to be letting some people go, or we're going to be furloughing some people. And there's also a lot of uncertainty out there. This is from the New York Times just earlier this month, as a matter of fact, mounting job losses, business failures. And this individual from a conservative operation, the Tax Foundation in Washington, is saying their assumption is that they're going into re-lockdown at some point in the fall. So that obviously doesn't paint a rosy picture. And then myself as a career coach, I'm getting more and more things like this, people reaching out to me saying, my company's struggling, preparing for a possible layoff. I got furloughed. I don't think it's going to stop there, meaning they think that layoffs are coming. Can you help me with this job search? So there's a lot of this going on right now. And so I think everyone has their own relationship with their employer, but it also is the fact that it ain't pretty out there right now. So relative to that, there are 4 career truths I'd want you to keep in mind that'll kind of serve as sort of setting the table for the presentation here today. Even the best employers are going to encounter things that may or may not be under their control, and employees the same thing. And these things could potentially impact our future. At this time last year, I doubt anyone here would possibly envision where we are right now. And so things come up that are completely, not unexplained, but not accounted for. We did not see that coming. And the fact is you either manage your career or it'll be managed for you. And especially preparing for the unknown or for the uncertainty, that's where career management can really come in and be vital for your long-term career success. There are never any guarantees with our career. There are certainly things that we can always be doing to manage our careers, but there's not, you can never guarantee anything. But there are definitely things that we can be doing to maximize our chances for career success and for employability. And in fact, that's the focus of this webinar here today. That's what we want to focus on. What are those things that we can be doing even now to maximize our chances for career success and for employability? So the premise for today is you're currently employed, but thinking that could change sometime soon because you're anticipating a job change no matter what, or you've got furloughs or layoffs that you think are coming. That's what you kind of are seeing in your crystal ball, or you're currently not employed right now. So the question is what can you be doing to maximize your chances for career success and for employability? So along those lines, the agenda, we've got basically 3 main components to the agenda here today. We'll talk about tactics within your current job. We'll talk about LinkedIn optimization because that's absolutely huge. And then 9 other sort of proven tactics that can lead again to career success and employability. And then Q&A. As we go through here, I'm not going to pause for Q&A, but we'll leave time at the end for that. Thank you for those of you who have already submitted questions. And we'll try to get to as many of those and as many of the new incoming questions on the way in as well. If you use the Q&A feature here in Zoom, Jen will be quarterbacking that process for us a little later on. So as questions come up, please do enter them into the Q&A. So Jen gave that gracious introduction of me. Thank you for that, Jen. I sure appreciate that. And so I won't belabor this, but that's me. Professionally these days, I'm from the home office here in Dallas, Fort Worth. I work in two different areas. I'm a career coach. I'm the founder and career coach for my own company, which is Career Roadmap, careerroadmap.com. And I also do grad school admissions consulting. I do the work that I did for Olin as an MBA admissions director there. I now help individuals with grad school applications, which can be a component of one's career development. And so if you want to know more about that, myself and my business partner for that, we are Grad School Roadmap, and you're welcome to check me out what we do there if you would like. So Career Roadmap and Grad School Roadmap are my two lines of businesses. So before we jump into the main part of the content, let's do a little reality check here. I coach, at any one given time, usually somewhere between 20 and 30 individuals. And in the past several weeks, these are kinds of things that they've been mentioning to me. The world is closed. They had interviews, but somehow the company or organization or the firm went into a hiring freeze, and all of a sudden, and the other thing is they get completely ghosted. They were in the process, and all of a sudden the company they stopped hearing from them. The biggest curveball in the history of the world, and people who are currently employed right now, sometimes the communication isn't very good from the organization. I have no idea what my company is doing these days. So let's acknowledge the obvious, that it's tough out there. It is tough. Some people are facing some very harsh realities, or some of those realities could be on the horizon. It's not good out there, okay? And that's why we're here today to talk about these things, like what can we be doing? And the good news is that it won't last forever. It can't last forever. Then there are things within our control, and there are things that we can be doing right now. So we're going to acknowledge the negative, but let's move forward with the positive and see what we can be doing. And it is the time we have remaining here today. So 9 tactics within your current role. So here's another poll. Sam's going to help us out with this again. So here's a scenario. Unfortunately, we'll stay with the negative for just one more moment here. So you get laid off today. Unfortunately, you get let go. Your IT is cut off. Of course, if you've ever been let go, you know that that's pretty much a typical thing that happens. You're given a day and time because we're all working remotely. You're given a day and time to come in and turn in your badge and turn in your computer. Or if you're working on site, you have to turn that in. Usually it's immediately, or sometimes you don't even get to go back to your desk. And you basically are given a short amount of time to pack up and your belongings and escorted out, of course, all while under security's watch. Could you do it? So if you would please vote in this poll. Yeah, I could do it. Could I do it? It'd be 90 seconds and I'd be out the door after I grabbed that frame photo. There's no way I could do it, or I sure hope somebody would clear my computer search history. If you would please take a quick moment to vote in that, and then we'll see where people's minds are with this before we get into 9 tactics within your current role. I'll be very impressed if someone actually votes for the 4th one there. Impressed by your candor. And then Sam, whenever we've got a critical mass, if you would kindly unveil our results. So we got, good. 2 people did for the last one. I love it. Wonderful. We've got honest people here at WashU. Most people, no problem, I could do it. They out the door in 90 seconds. But the majority is I'd have to scramble, but I could do it. And so, that there's 17%, 16 participants are saying there's no way. And, could this happen? I don't know. It just depends on your overall situation. But this kind of scenario, if someone's let go, this is something that you might want to think about, because unfortunately it could happen. And is there any action you might want to take, corresponding to this? I realize that that's kind of a pessimistic thing, but again, we'll just acknowledge the obvious. It's tough out there, and these things can happen. So Okay, so that's that. So 9 tactics within your current job. I'm going to go with 5 defensive tactics, kind of preparing for the what if, and then 4 offensive tactics, sort of going on the attack, so to speak, to say, to prevent the what if. And so that's what we'll do right now. So I'll put these first 2 ones together when we're going on the defense. Saving copies of your past evaluations and saving a copy of your calendar. Why is this important? Well, what would happen if you needed to update your resume? What would happen if you needed to update your LinkedIn profile? Is everything up to date? These 2 things are phenomenal sources for, if you have to do a job search. It's a great opportunity to, on your resume in particular, also your LinkedIn profile, and fodder for any interviews to speak of your accomplishments and have responses to behavioral questions and this sort of thing. Sometimes people know these things off the top of their head, but it's always good to, if you have past evaluations, if you have copies of your calendar, you can kind of know that these, have these things kind of top of mind and know what some of those accomplishments are. You don't have to really go try to reconstruct them, especially again, if you don't have access to those things, because unfortunately things came to a close quickly at your past job or your current job. By the way, just as a quick aside, I hope everyone here, just if you're not already, get in the habit. Do you keep a brag file? Some people do this already as part of any sort of annual or semi-annual evaluation process, where basically their biggest accomplishments or any time that they contribute to something, they basically make a copy of it or they put it into basically a brag file. And that way, if they, when it comes time for evaluation time or if they would ever need it, it's all in one spot. Think about that. Keeping a brag file kind of as you go is a smart career management move. Contacts. I hope everyone here has a personal email address and a personal way of sort of keeping track of their contacts. It does surprise me often how many individuals actually use their work email for basically everything. If you do that, okay, I'm not going to get into why that might not be a bad idea, but the next step is like, okay, well, if you have clients, friends, customers, business contacts, whatever, that are only in your professional email, maybe you need to, if you, what happens if that went away? Would you want to have contact information of anyone else? So can you have those contacts would be a good thing to somehow have going forward. Clean up your files, online and hard copy. Anything you would need to have a copy of, anything that might be valuable. And remember, even in the case of a furlough, you probably won't have IT access. And so don't think that, okay, I'm on furlough, but I'll have a chance to go into to Teams or the shared drive or whatever, and get that stuff out of there. Usually you don't have that access. And is there anything else you need to get out of your office? I don't want to go in too many particulars here, but I can get from personal experience. I once followed somebody into a job who my predecessor had been terminated, and I literally came into his office and took on his role, and I had to clean out his office. And I can tell you very definitively that he didn't have a chance to clean out his office. And based upon what was in his office, I bet he wasn't really happy that somebody else went through that and saw what he had in there. I'll just leave it at that. And I'm not saying anything about anybody, but all I'm saying is that, anything in your office that you would want to get out of there in case you wouldn't have a chance to, clean it up or whatever, might be something to think about it. So those are the defensive tactics. Let's talk about the offensive tactics now. Cultivating interpersonal relationships. In today's environment, man, there's a lot of people who are struggling out there. There's a lot of people who, it's a tough time emotionally right now. Take the time to check in on people, make sure to, keep in touch with your colleagues and to kind of go the extra distance. A lot of the interpersonal relationships, a lot of the interpersonal contact that we have grown so used to and have taken for granted for so long, it doesn't happen. So things like just going out of your way to check in on people, even people outside of your department, other people at your organization, show up to meetings early. That's kind of the version of the water cooler talk, and just check in on people, just come in, be there a little early and engage in sort of that chit chat and that kind of thing. Great opportunity to do that, but make sure that you're cultivating those interpersonal relationships. First of all, it's a good thing to do for people. Second of all, those interpersonal relationships could be very valuable with respect to networking down the road, now or down the road. In your current role, assuming you're still in your current role, this is definitely time to be the pillar of professionalism. This is not the time to cut corners. This is the time to excel. This is the time to speak up. This is the time to be accessible, to be on time, beat deadlines, come in under budget, whatever it is. This is not the time to skim by. This is definitely just not it. This is the time we have to step up, because if there would ever be those conversations about who's staying and who's going, you don't want to be that person who they're not quite sure what you've been up to these past several weeks. You want to be visible. think about your next position, your ideal next position. And, do you have the qualifications for that? Do you have the experience for that? If there's anything you can be doing in your current role for that ideal next role, what can you be doing to do that now, so that you can legitimately and ethically and honestly include that information on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile, so that you say, so that your next job, you actually had that experience. If your next role, for example, you want to be you want to have more strategic input, you want to have more of a strategy say, but you haven't hardly done anything in your current role or past roles, again, this is just an example, in the area of strategy. My question is what can you do now? What can you volunteer to do? Can you step up? Can you volunteer to do something? Can you just proactively do something to the point where it actually may help your organization? And it could also be a bullet point for your resume, so that in that future job, when someone says, well, this is a strategy position, tell us about an example, give us an example of a time when you gave strategic input to a program, and then, whatever. And then you have actually something to say. You actually have something to go with. So think about that future job and how you can sort of build up your resume, LinkedIn profile, so that you're prepared for it. Related, volunteer to expand your current role. Again, not the time to keep your head down. Where's your line of business? Where is your department? Where is business and things start likely to go up? Where is it likely to come down? And how can you align with where it's going up? Make sure that you're clearly communicating your willingness to take on more. Where can you pitch in? Where can I lead? Because if things happen, you do not want them to be able to say, oh, if we only knew that you were interested in whatever, we could have gotten you involved with that. Or, oh, if we only knew you had experience in this area, we could have gotten you involved with it. Don't let them do that. Proactive. This is a time where you need to proactively get out there and be doing that and increase your visibility, make yourself all that much more valuable to your organization. So here are the 9 tactics within your current role. So hope those are going to be valuable. Let's transition now to the second part of our discussion here today, and we're going to talk about LinkedIn. So what do you think about LinkedIn? This is what I want to hear about from you. 5 different options here. I'm not on it all the way through. I'm on other social media. It's not exactly for me. I like it. I'm on there maybe once a week. I'm all over it. Or what's LinkedIn? If you would please register your vote in that poll. And once we get a critical mass, Sam will unveil where we are as an audience and where we think about LinkedIn these days. All right, results coming up here. Thank you, Sam. Okay, so we've got pretty nice little bell curve here, sort of. Anyway, I like it, and I'm on there maybe once a week is the most. All over it, part of my daily routine, 28%. Awesome, that's great. About a quarter, it's okay, but they're more for social media. They're more Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest sort of people. That's okay. That's fine, no problem at all. What I want to do here is talk about sort of LinkedIn and why it's important, and then talk about some of the foundations of having a really good profile. Because people say, I get the question all the time, sort of like, how can I build a strong network on LinkedIn? Or how do I approach LinkedIn? The first step is to have a strong profile on LinkedIn. And so we'll talk about that a little bit further here today. So, but thank you for letting me know. It's good to know that so many people are already all over LinkedIn. And for those of you who are a little more hesitant about it, I hope that part of what I do here today is convince you of how imperative it is. So 3 steps toward LinkedIn, just a real quick, why is it important for all these reasons right here? It's not just people talk about, oh, it's my online resume. Yeah, kind of, it is. It's also, I mean, for those individuals who had Rolodexes or still keep Rolodexes, this is like a Rolodex that always keeps updating, and you can always keep in touch with people. Always a great place to develop your professional brand, and it's got a fantastic job board as well. On top of that, it is a current best practice for those of you who may not have updated your resume in a while. It is a current best practice to include your LinkedIn URL on your resume. The thought is that recruiters and hiring managers are probably going to go looking for you anyway, so might as well just provide that there. So as part of a job search, you're pretty much going to need a solid LinkedIn profile, and not having one is increasingly viewed and candidly with suspicion. It's sort of like, why isn't this person on LinkedIn? And so having a strong profile can definitely keep your progress moving forward. And so that's what we're going to talk about here today. Something to think about. On LinkedIn, there are some settings that you're going to want to think about. When you start making changes to your profile, your connections will be alerted. And when you view someone else's profile, they can see that the default is that they will see that you view their profile. This is different from much other social media. So these are settings. You can turn them on and turn them off as you so choose. And there are pros and cons. There's not necessarily a right or wrong here. Sometimes having someone see that you looked at their profile actually is not a bad thing at all, and can lead to connections, can lead to interviews, can lead to all kinds of different things. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just want to make sure that you're aware of this before you get too far into doing LinkedIn updates. Just make sure that these are two settings that you might want to think about before you go too far. So step number one to an optimized LinkedIn profile is having a good professional photo that is publicly viewable. This gray blob here on the screen, what is that? That is what people see if you either don't have a photo, a headshot there, or if your settings are such that you don't have it publicly viewable. Okay, they'll see that. They won't see your headshot. People actually research this stuff, and they say that having a profile photo leads to up to 21 more times more profile views, and you're 9 times more likely to have connection requests just having that there. So have a good photo. What makes a good LinkedIn photo? This is what makes a good LinkedIn photo. A professional looking headshot just of you. It's not where you want to be, it's you at, the wedding you went to last Saturday and you and all your friends and you crop, just yourself out. That's not it. You want to look the part of your target industry, your functional role, whatever that next job is, whatever people wear for that job, that's what you want to be wearing. If you're not sure about that, go out to LinkedIn, look up people who have that kind of job now and see what they're wearing. That's what you want to be wearing, because it is possible to both over and underdress for that role. Not distracting, entire, current and recognizable as you. The thought on that is if you're, let's just say that we're, going into Starbucks or a St. Louis bread company or wherever for a networking meeting, you want to know who you're looking for and vice versa. So you want it recognizable as you and single non-distracting colors. So don't have your pictures dressed as Batman, but these are examples of good LinkedIn profile photos. I call it attention, especially to the individual second from the right. She looks like she could be in some sort of medical field, maybe in a science field. Looks like she could be standing in a lab. Maybe she has a white lab coat on. For someone who's in that line of business, this is a perfectly appropriate LinkedIn photo. For someone who might be going for a role in traditional business or something, I wouldn't necessarily agree with this whole thing of sort of looking the part of the role that you're going for, your aspirational next role. That's something to be thinking about. These are strong LinkedIn profile photos. These are not. These photos are these are lovely people and they're great photos and they're funny and everything, but they're just not for LinkedIn. These, it's not. I love animals. I love my dog, but it's not a place to have a picture of you and your dog. It's not a place for silly or lighthearted photos. Usually speaking, again, fine photos, just not good for LinkedIn. Step two, make sure you have a strong headline and about section. These are the two sections that after a strong profile photo are going to be most influential in you coming up high and strong in LinkedIn search results. Having a strong headline, having a strong about section. What are those? Your headline is that part that comes right underneath your name. Okay, and the about section is the part that pretty much usually is going to be right underneath there in your profile. These are analogous in some ways to the professional summary that should be on your resume, hint, hint. And although sometimes you might or may not have a headline on your resume. But anyway, the about section is similar to a professional summary. The big difference with the about section is that usually it's written more in a more narrative style. It's more first person, and you want to go ahead and kind of have some more personality come through than you probably would on a resume professional summary. These work together and basically demonstrate and showcase what you're all about as a professional, what you're passionate about, what you're targeting next. If you're targeting next, it might have a list of skills or core competencies in there. There's no one right way to do these sections, but they work in unison to sort of showcase who you are as a professional. If someone who doesn't know you comes into your LinkedIn profile and reads your headline and reads your profession and reads the your about section and comes away with that with no clear idea of kind of what you are, who you are as a professional, then I would suggest you've got some editing and some things you might need to do. Third step toward for an effective LinkedIn profile, a complete profile. Can't tell you how many times I go into someone's LinkedIn profile and it's just this mishmash. Some areas and some sections are very well built out, very professional, very up to date, detailed. Other places, it looks like, Pride Rock after Scar took over. I mean, it looks terrible. I mean, it's just weird mishmash of all these different things. It's just no good. And so you want to make sure that you have uniformly filled out each section. Some people like to have a tremendous amount of detail. Some people just, a little bit, that's fine, but you want that. This is a reflection of you as a professional. So make sure that you take time to not just do some sections, but make sure that everything is fully filled out as much as you reasonably can. Make sure, it looks professional, consistent formatting, absence of typos and correct grammar, all those different sorts of things. Make sure that you have that. So those are the main things. Professional, good headshot, a strong headline and about section, and a complete profile. So those are the things. And by the way, when it comes to LinkedIn, we barely scratched the surface here. I do whole webinars just on LinkedIn and how to use LinkedIn for networking and other purposes. So we barely scratched the surface here. But if you're going to use LinkedIn, I would strongly recommend that you do. The very first step that you need to do is to have a strong profile. And this is how these are your first steps in making sure that you have a strong profile. So, okay, the final section before we get to our Q&A, and I hope those questions are rolling in. These are the little things are the big things, 9 proven tactics. And this is a little bit of a potpourri. It's a little bit of a mishmash of various different things. And on the surface, some of these things may not seem like a big deal. However, I can tell you that in over 10 years of career coaching, I have seen each one of these things cost somebody in a job search. In some cases, cost them an offer. And so it may not seem like a big deal, but I'm telling you, I've seen it. These things, in fact, are big deals. And again, we're talking today about maximizing your chances. So part of maximizing your chances is not taking on any unnecessary risks that you don't have to take on. And so that's what these things are going to address here. So let's jump right into this. This is our 4th and final poll. Sam is going to help us out here. Think for a moment. Think about your cell phone, the voicemail announcement that you have on there. If I called your cell phone right now and got your voicemail, what would I hear? So I have no idea. It's been a long time. Justin Timberlake was still with NSYNC last time I did that. Or maybe it's my kids singing some funny song and then saying leave a message. Maybe it's just one of those automatic things. Or maybe it's me and it's fairly professional, or me and fairly casual. So if you would take a moment, please, and let me know. Be honest. Again, I'll be really impressed if someone picks one of the first one anyway. Love the candor. I'll also be impressed if anyone else knows all the names of the gentlemen here from NSYNC. I only know Justin Timberlake. Okay, awesome. 45. Thank you, Sam. 45%. Me and fairly professional. Good. Love that. 34%. About a third, a little over a third. No announcements. Just a robotic voice. Fairly casual. I love 7 people admitted to the NSYNC thing, or that they simply don't know. I love the candor. That's awesome. Because it's one of those things. I think most people, when they get a phone, when they get a new phone or they get new service or whatever, they set up their voicemail, and that's about the last time they think about it until they, go and get a new phone. And, hey, that's fine. It's not something we think about very much. And I know that people don't call people as much as they used to. But, believe it or not, this actually is still important. So, yeah, so definitely one of the things. Thank you, Sam, for the poll. I sure appreciate that. But recording a professional voicemail announcement is something I would definitely advocate for. This could be your future boss's first real interaction with you, or a recruiter's first real interaction with you, and you want it to be reflective of you as a professional. Would definitely recommend you actually record an announcement so that they know it's you. Let your personality come through. You don't have to be a robot yourself. You can let your simple personality come through, but keep it professional. And by the way, make sure you keep room in your voicemail. If you're going to be doing a job search, you do not want that call that comes through with hey, so and so, we're going to be making you an offer, or the offer itself. You can't pick up, and they can't even leave you a voicemail. Get those, clear some space, clear a lot of space, because you might be getting a lot of phone calls. Related to that, make sure your email is set up professionally. Again, this gets back to what I mentioned earlier. Do not use your company's email for your search. and make sure that it is professional, make sure it's on a modern platform. I don't consider personally AOL to be a modern platform, or Juno, or some other ones as well. So be thinking of a current professional email on a fairly modern platform. Do not use, it amazes me how many times I get a resume to review for someone who's thinking about a job and they're using their professional email. No, you need to have your own personal email for the search. So make sure of that. Oops, hang on, let me get back going here. Okay, make sure dedicate time to it. Okay, this, don't just think that if you leave your job search or leave this sort of stuff to kind of like whenever I have time, a lot of times it kind of falls by the wayside. Block off time, and one of the reasons why this is important is because when jobs become available, especially if we're talking about a job that's on a job board, just because it is there on Monday does not mean that that job is still going to be there on Thursday. Various companies have policies about how long a position has to be posted. Sometimes it's a matter of 48 hours. Sometimes it's a week. Sometimes it's 2 weeks. It just depends on the company. It depends on their organization and what their policies are. But if you see a job, you see a position that you think you're going to go for on one day, do you have to drop everything and apply for it right then? No, but I wouldn't dawdle on it, because there's no guarantee that that thing is going to be there. The other thing on this is that if you think about what could be happening behind the scenes, especially these days where there's a lot of job seekers out there, and you could have a situation where a job is posted on Monday and an organization gets 150 applications by Wednesday. And the recruiter who's managing the process goes in there, sees 150 applications, and he or she says, wow, that's great. Okay, we'll make that kind of our first batch. And they start working with those candidates. And the job is still posted and applications are still coming in, but they're kind of sitting in a holding pattern and may not even, they're going to work with their first 150. And so you want to be early and be on top of these things when you're applying for roles. It's not necessarily that if you apply a little later that you can't get a job. It's just that earlier is always going to be better. Okay, staying organized, make sure that you have some sort of way of staying organized, however that is. If it's a big Excel spreadsheet or Google Docs or an Access database, whatever you do, make sure you stay organized, because it could be the case where as you're applying to more and more jobs, doing more and more networking, things start to run together on you. Just as I was just saying, just because a job is posted on day one doesn't mean that it's going to still be up there on day 3. And I've seen a lot of individuals who they're applying for so many jobs, and then they get an email or a call for an interview, and they don't even know necessarily what job it is for, because they've applied to so many, and or they don't have their own copy of the job description because they didn't save a copy of it. So don't let that be you. Make sure that you're on top of these things and that you are staying organized. Okay. Clean up all your social media, not just LinkedIn. You should assume that the recruiter, hiring manager, as part of their vetting process, is going to go looking for you online, whether that's other social media, a general Google search, whatever it is. Assume that they're going to come looking for you, and you need to clean that stuff up. And obviously, there are a lot of things that could be viewed as incendiary or troll-ish, or whatever you want to call it. Just, when in doubt, take it out. I think most people know the proverbial grandma test about social media, and that is if you post it on social media and you would, and your grandma wouldn't like it, or you wouldn't be proud if your grandma saw it, maybe it doesn't belong there. But just know that they will, they'll come looking for you. And again, in an environment like now where there's a lot of individuals looking for jobs, the slightest thing that either differentiates you in a negative way or even a positive way can be a difference maker in their decision. Don't give them any ammunition to, if you will, to remove you from the process. Stay positive, clean that stuff up. Flexibility, absolutely huge in today's market. Everyone seems to have a plan A as far as what's going to happen, but have a plan B, C, D. There are fewer jobs available and more people seeking jobs. So both of those make it tough out there. There are people who are now, based upon the market conditions, are staying in roles longer than they had anticipated because there's an impact on their retirement plans. Some jobs that thought were going to be coming open now are not, or at least not right away. And candidly, it's not an optimal time to switch job function or switch industries. It's not saying you can't do it, but it's hard enough just to get a new job right now. But if you're talking about a switch of an industry or a switch of a functional area, it's going to be hard. So staying flexible and understanding that every career is going to be a series of steps. Whatever job you may have next may not be that ideal job necessarily, but think of it as, what if I take this job here, maybe what job will it make available to me based upon the qualifications and the experience that I will have in this stepping stone position. Okay, consider upskilling. As we're all, at home or sheltering in place or not going out as much as we used to or whatever, there's a lot of opportunities still out there for upskilling. Think about, what is that thing that people who are my peers all seem to be embracing, all seem to have, all seem to be adding to their resumes or their LinkedIn profiles or whatever. They're doing those things to differentiate themselves. And if you're not also doing corresponding things to make sure that you're staying competitive, eventually you could find yourself on the outside looking in. So now is a really good time to be, if there's always that thing that you've been, you've kind of avoided, or, I just never quite get around to it. Well, as it gets more and more competitive, you might think about, now might be the time to be thinking about that. And oh, by the way, yeah, you might have to pay a little bit of money to do it. But if I told you that either next week, you're going to be, and this is kind of negative, but just stay with me. If next week you're going to be let go of your job versus right now, you could spend $500 and upskill and have some new skill that is going to help you keep your job. Which would you choose? I think it's fairly obvious. So there's that. Communicating with friends. This is sort of networking 101, but making sure that, you're staying in touch with people, making sure that they're aware of your situation, kind of, especially people in your target organizations. In other words, the organizations where you think you might want to work next. Let them know what's going on. Let them be your eyes and ears. Don't go this alone. Make sure that other people know what's going on out there. They could be in a similar situation. LinkedIn is awesome for this. And something else to keep in mind too about networking, and I bet almost everyone on the call already knows this, but just make sure you communicate. Networking's a two-way street. I mean, yes, people can potentially help you, but if you make it obvious to other people in your network as you do outreach that you are willing to help them as well, that usually pays dividends. And that's something that can help you as you go along in this sort of thing, and might be something really beneficial. Finally, give yourself a break. It's a hard time out there right now. Recognize that this is a marathon and not a sprint. Give yourself a break and take breaks. I mentioned earlier this whole thing about having a plan and making sure that you're staying on top of job boards and everything. It doesn't mean that every day you have to spend 8 hours on your job search. It doesn't mean you can't take a day off. It doesn't mean that you take a day off from your overall career management. Be nice to yourself. You don't have to do it every day, but understand that if you decide, for next 2 weeks I'm not going to do anything. Okay, hey, maybe overall big picture that is what's for the best. Understand that there could be the possibility you could miss out on some things there too, but that on balance, trade-off wise, that might be the best thing. So only you know what's best for you, and making sure that, again, you're overall being nice to yourself. So again, a lot of these things probably seem like small things. Little things are the big things though, and these are proven tactics that, again, that I've seen cost people in a job search. So I hope that these 9 proven tactics are beneficial. We're about to transition to the Q&A, but just one other quick thing to mention. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to career management. There are tons of other things you can be doing. I think that this is a good foundation for things you can be doing, but we haven't talked about many of these other things that I've listed on the screen here. Informational interviewing is absolutely huge. You can still be doing that remotely. You don't have to be able to go to lunch with people or to sit across the table from them at Starbucks or anything like that. There are other ways you can be going about doing that. And so these are all things that are all part of career management as well. But I just wanted to hit on some of the big ones. These are all things that I focus on in my coaching, by the way. For anyone who might be interested in that. Just about to turn it back over to Jen for Q&A, but I hope this has been beneficial for you. And anyone here is more than welcome to reach out to me, Kevin@careerroadmap.com. And if you have any questions, follow up. I do a free 30-minute phone call for anyone who's interested in talking about their own situation as it might relate to possibly me and my coaching. And so if you're interested in doing that, please do reach out to me, and I'll be happy to have that conversation with you and set up a call, free 30-minute phone call for anyone who's thinking about these sorts of things, and if I can be of any specific help. So with that, I would like to turn it back over to Jen Whitten. Thank you all very much for your kind attention, and I'm looking forward to answering some questions. Jen?
Great, thank you. There's definitely some questions coming in, so I'll try to group some of these. I don't know that we'll get to all of them. but some great questions. So I'm going to start with a theme that I've seen both in the Q&A, but also the questions beforehand, and that's around career change and how to effectively manage a career change during this time in two different situations. One would be you want to make that change, and the other is the role that you had is being impacted right now by the pandemic, and you have to make a career change. So what's your advice in those situations?
It's going to be tough. I mean, making a career change at any time is something that is going to be challenging, and it's something that's going to try our patience. And when you're in a situation as it is right now, where things are less and less amicable to career changes. In other words, there are more job seekers out there, and there are more people, there are fewer jobs available. It kind of hits both ways. And so acknowledging is going to be tough. I think one of the biggest things is the willingness to be flexible, and just knowing that just because your ideal role at your ideal organization has been something you've always had on your mind and something you've been thinking about for the past couple of years, and now it may not be possible to sort of make that pivot. It may not be there. And understanding, of course, that your career is a series of steps. And is it possible to make that transition right now? Sure, it is. It's a lot harder than it usually is. And patience and understanding that there are various steps along the way. You are not going to necessarily catapult into that ideal next job as the next thing. And another thing that I think about is in terms of career switchers who I've coached along the way, something to recognize is that if you are at a certain level within the organization or a certain sort of level of responsibility, if you're looking to make a change, it's very likely that you might have to step down a little bit, have a little less responsibility, and understand that your sort of learning curve has just got a little steeper. And so that's the sort of thing that you want to know coming into it, but also recognize that based upon your past success, an organization bringing you in a situation like that is probably also looking for you to have a pretty steep trajectory. And so just understand that being flexible and maintaining a learner's mindset is going to be huge for any switcher, whether in a pandemic or in, if you will, regular times.
Yeah, great. And kind of on that note, I think what's also important, you talked about this in your presentation, is the value of expanding your network and LinkedIn. So maybe I'll ask a couple questions that have come in about how to expand your network and how to really utilize LinkedIn. So I'll ask a couple kind of transactional questions that I think are probably on people's minds. Do you have a suggestion for the cover photo?
The cover photo, sure. Yeah, thank you. The cover photo, just by way of explanation, is the often called the background photo. It's that strong horizontal image that goes with your LinkedIn photo. I'll mention, one of the reasons I didn't mention that is because that photo is important and it can go along with your own personal branding. Big picture, it's much less important than your headshot is. But that background photo, again, you want it to go along with your own personal brand, and that can be a lot of different things. There are copious possibilities out there. If you do a search, just go to Google Images and do a search for LinkedIn background photos, and you'll get literally thousands of options. Or go to a free stock photo site like pexels.com and pick something that has to do with your own image. I'll give you an example briefly. I was coaching someone recently who is in the aviation industry. And the aviation industry is tough right now, and we're working on him switching careers. And as part of his branding on LinkedIn, he's got his background photo is basically like planes, okay? And he's looking to get out of aviation. And so one of the things that I suggested to him, and he's done it, he replaced that photo with something. He's looking to get into the food and beverage industry, and so he replaced that as something a little more aligned with that. So just recognize that just like your headshot does, that background photo, it's got to be a reflection of you and your professional brand.
Yeah, great. A couple other kind of follow-ups around the profile, because I do feel like what I like all these questions is you want to get that profile up and ready and the best possible before you start building your network.
Totally.
So another question was about, do you believe that the experience section should be the same as your resume?
I love that question. So there's an interesting note behind the question, and that is that for every application you should be submitting, you should be tailoring that resume. It needs to be specific for that exact job. And so we're not going to talk too much about resumes, but related to that, And on LinkedIn, you only get one LinkedIn profile. And so you can tailor it for the target kind of job you want or the target industry, but you can't, unless you're only applying to one job at a time, you can't target your LinkedIn profile to one thing. So it is perfectly okay to have different information on your resume than what you have on your LinkedIn profile. What you cannot have is contradictory information. In other words, if you say that on one that you have an MPH and the other you say you have an MBA, any recruiter worth his or her salt is going to catch that, and that's probably going to be a red flag. So things like employers, dates of employment, where you got your degree from, what kind of degrees, just those straightforward factual things, those need to be identical. After that, bullet points and sort of the verbiage and that kind of stuff, again, identical, no, but you just can't have something that's contradictory between the two.
Great. So we've got our profile ready and people are out there and they're going to network. And so they want to start to reach out. So they've got questions about reaching out. You know, how do you build your network? What type of people should you connect with? Should you go for higher level people? Should you reach out to recruiters?
Oh boy.
What should you say to them? All kinds.
Wow.
See if you can, lots to,
wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah. How much time do we have? I love this question. And where do we start? Okay. So let's start with the big thing. So building your network. Yeah, it's all about building connections. There are people who have different approaches to different areas of social media. I get that LinkedIn is not Facebook, is not Instagram. There are people who like to really limit who they have on certain social media because, you know, they don't want, you know, certain people seeing what they did on Saturday night or whatever like that. Okay, fine. LinkedIn is a professional site. There are different schools of thought around this. My school of thought is that on LinkedIn, you want to maximize your connections, okay? I would encourage you to reach out and connect with people as much as you possibly can. Start with, of course, people you know. Actually, now that I've said that about Facebook and Instagram, one of the things I would suggest is that if you are connected with someone on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, whatever, I mean, my suggestion would be like, why wouldn't you not be LinkedIn with them as well? And maybe there's a good reason for that. But one way to build your network very quickly is just basically do a side-by-side comparison between the two, building that up. And so, yeah, it's about maximizing connections. And there's a lot of good reasons for that, because one of the tactics most job seekers want to employ is having having inroads into their target organization, so that when they do apply, that person can potentially help them raise their visibility as an applicant. Now, whether or not to target senior people, junior people, I would tell you to start with individuals who are at your level, who actually your peers, people you actually know. And you know, hey, if you have a friend of your parents, or you just happen to know someone who's a senior vice president in an organization, hey, reach out to them. I encourage people to reach out to as many people as they possibly can, even if it's a little bit of I kind of know this person, they may sort of know who I am. A personal note every time, never just connect with them, a personal note every time. And if they connect, awesome. If they don't, that's fine too. We saw earlier today, not everyone fully embraces LinkedIn. Some people are totally all over it. Some people, are not. And so if someone doesn't respond to your request, never ever take it personally. Just, hey, move on to the next thing. It's just one of those things. After you connect with people, definitely, I wouldn't just end it there. Send them a quick note, thank them, profess your willingness to help them out if you can ever possibly do something for them. If they, by chance, work at a target organization and you're looking to do some networking there, suggest a conversation, which is a whole thing around informational interviewing that we haven't quite gotten to yet. But it's a willingness, candidly, to sort of put yourself out there and to personalize things as much as you possibly can. And then on top of that, making sure that you're clear in your communication, that you see this as a two-way street.
Great, thanks. And I think we had somebody ask if they can connect with you. I know I said I'm happy to have anybody connect with me on LinkedIn.
Sure.
I do also appreciate the note. If you say you're in the webinar, we can help expand your network as well. Always happy to do that. So
I get connections with fellow WashU alums all the time, and I hope that almost everyone on this call feels the same way. Hey, if you're a WashU alum, I mean, I will help you as much as I possibly can.
Great. So a couple questions just about the general job market, right? People are trying to find what companies are hiring, how to target those companies and organizations. Any suggestions around, I think you talked about a little bit in the beginning, things are moving a little bit slower. It's hard for candidates to know, what companies are doing at this time.
The whole so staying plugged in, staying on top of things, knowing that job postings again that are there now are not necessarily going to be there in the future. So staying on top of things is a big thing. Not to keep intentionally coming back to this, but networking is absolutely huge. This whole notion, and this is a whole other segment of career management, this notion of the hidden job market. And there are people who say that of all the jobs that people get, something along the lines of 80 to 90% of them are never advertised on any public space. And this is the so-called hidden job market. And how do those jobs come about? It comes about through networking, it comes about through connections, it comes through interpersonal relationships. And so I would encourage individuals who, even if you have your whatever 20 target organizations or whatever you have, and you're looking at their job boards and you're working on that side of things, I can't stress enough the importance of interpersonal relationships and your networking in this, and making sure that everyone, I'm going to say a very blanket statement, but everyone if you're looking for work, everyone should know that you're looking for work and have a sense of kind of what you're looking for. Don't do this solo. My gosh, leverage your network, make sure other people have a sense of what you'd be looking for. So that first of all, that they can be their eyes and ears. And second of all, in those instances where positions are created, knowing your talents, your experience, your skills, that they can do that. You can't do that unless you actively put yourself out there and again, develop those relationships.
Yeah, and just to follow up, I feel like you provided wonderful advice, and I know we've got some questions from new grads. I just want to say that I feel like a lot of the advice and tactics that you've talked about, although some of them might be in the workplace, they are helpful no matter what stage of your career that you're in.
For
networking,
sure.
LinkedIn, reaching out, interpersonal relationships, they're important no matter what stage of your career that you're in. So
for sure. Well said. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, totally agreed. Yes.
And then I think we can have one last question. There's some questions around going to grad school, which is also an area that you have experience in. So any advice or thoughts about people that want to return for either an MBA or an additional graduate degree?
This is something near and dear to my heart since I was a director of admissions there at WashU. I also recognize that grad school is not for everyone. Some individuals approach grad school and the admissions process and going to get a graduate degree as sort of the single way that they plan to manage their career. I would suggest that going to grad school, whether it's an MBA, law school, a PhD in sociology, whatever it is part of managing your career, but not necessarily, but almost certainly not the one single thing. It's part of your career management. And so it is definitely an interesting and possible way for individuals to accelerate their career, to pivot careers. An MBA in particular is a great opportunity to sort of hit the career reset button, because there are a lot of opportunities in there. It doesn't mean it happens automatically, and it doesn't mean that if you go and get a great MBA from a place like WashU that you can just show up and all of a sudden recruiters are going to be showing up and begging you to work for them with six-figure salaries. It just doesn't work that way, as Jen can tell you. It just doesn't work that way. But if you do the hard work and you do what you're supposed to be doing and you put in the time, it can be part of the formula for success. We're going to be talking a lot more about grad school and grad school admissions in a subsequent webinar here for WashU on September 15th. I'll let Jenna talk a little bit more about that. So more to come. But I will leave you with this. One big thing is, if you're thinking about grad school, make sure, whether it's an MBA or medical school or whatever it is, make sure you know your why. Why am I doing this? What is as Covey would say, the end in mind? Because if you don't have a sense for why you're doing this and how that particular graduate degree sort of fits into that gap analysis, like here's where I am now, here's where I want to be, and that grad degree is going to help me bridge that gap. If you don't have that, then I would suggest you need to sort of think about your strategy a little bit more closely.
Thanks. I think I got the notice that that was the last question. So I appreciated the time. I think there's still a lot of wonderful questions that people have. Wish we could have gotten to all of them, but appreciate your time, Kevin. And I'm going to hand it back over to Jenna.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin and Jennifer, thank you so much for participating in today's event. We look forward to seeing all of you guys again soon. So be sure to mark your calendars for September 15th for our upcoming webinar featuring Kevin Kiley, Applying to Grad School, Maximizing Your Chances at Admission. And additionally, we encourage you to visit the digital resources and virtual connections page on our website to learn more about ways to connect with WashU alumni, students, and faculty. So thank you all again for joining, and have a great rest of your day.